Welcome to Silent Waves, where history unfolds not in pages, but in the static between breaths. The United States of America stands as the last fortress against Axis domination. 2 years of blood, fire, and ruin have reshaped the world. France is gone. Britain lies in ashes. The Soviet Union has been carved apart. Across both oceans, the Axis war machine presses every advantage, unstoppable and merciless. And tonight, we speak to you from what remains of freedom's fragile edge. I'm Mercer, reporting from the stronghold of New York. Every ruined street corner here tells a story of endurance, of lives shattered and rebuilt in the dark. Through these broadcasts, we bring you truth, the conquests behind us, the battles still raging, and the will of a people who refuse to surrender. To keep this signal alive, share it, pass it forward. Every voice, every echo, every whisper of hope matters. Now we turn to Quinn in Washington, a city still standing, though just barely. Britain lies in ashes. The Soviet Union has been carved apart. Across both oceans, the Axis war machine presses every advantage, unstoppable and merciless. And tonight, I speak to you from what remains of freedom's fragile edge. I'm Mercer, reporting from the stronghold of New York. Every ruined street corner here tells a story of endurance, of lives shattered and rebuilt in the dark. Through this broadcast, I bring you the truth, the conquests behind us, the battles still raging, and the will of a people who refuse to surrender. To keep this signal alive, share it, pass it forward. Every voice, every echo, every whisper of hope matters. Now Washington breathes, though just barely. The city's veins are thick with hunger. Ration lines stretch endlessly down avenues once filled with parades and laughter. Families huddle in the cold autumn air, clutching ration tickets for hills of black bread and bowls of thin soup. The government insists distribution is fair, but resentment festers. Tempers flare daily at the depots. National Guard patrols break up riots with rifle butts, while mothers plead for crumbs for their children. And still, the Capitol holds. The flag rises over the rubble of the dome, even as the earth trembles from nightly shelling. And here in New York, we remember Pearl Harbor. The sea, our oldest ally, has become our deepest wound. 2 years ago, Pearl Harbor fell not once, but twice. After the first strike, America rebuilt, only to see the Pacific Fleet annihilated again in a second merciless assault. Carrier decks burned, battleships split open like carcasses, thousands drowned in blackened oil. In the Atlantic, worse still, the carrier trap. Axis submarines and decoyed convoys drew our fleets into slaughter. Entire strike groups vanished within hours. Survivors swear the ocean itself had turned against us. Since then, our coasts have stood naked. New York knows the cost. Axis raiders strike merchant ships within sight of the Statue of Liberty. And yet, the city fights on. Britain's voice endures, even in exile. Winston Churchill, no longer in London, but speaking from abroad, reaches us through the static. He tours our bases, preaching unity. A man without a homeland, urging America to carry the torch Britain dropped when its island fell. He has become a symbol, a battered lion roaring through American radio. Children clutched radios in the dark, hearing a voice from a fallen empire whisper, "Endure, fight on." Here in New York, the ruins have become a fortress. The avenues once built for commerce now serve as trenches. Burned-out skyscrapers rise as towers for our militias. The city has turned itself into a labyrinth hostile to invaders. Our defenders are dock workers, students, shopkeepers, people who know every alley better than any Axis patrol. Every night, the city organizes. New York is no longer a jewel to be polished. It's a dagger aimed outward. Fear spreads southward. Reports from the Louisiana camps grow darker. Axis occupation forces, aided by collaborators, run camps officially called relocation centers. Unofficially, detainees vanish. Prisoners work until they collapse. Among the rumors, my sister, Lily. Some say she's been seen there, others that it's propaganda. I cannot confirm. I pray it's a lie. And yet, when Axis planes drop leaflets promising mercy, the thought of her in their hands gnaws at me. And still I hold my ground. I cannot afford doubt. Washington answers the skies with fire. Nights are made of artillery and smoke. Civilians dig shelters beneath row houses. Churches open their basements as sanctuaries. Hospitals overflow with shrapnel wounds. Morgues are full. Hunger has become a weapon. The last flour is stretched with sawdust and weeds. Children gag on black bread, but it's all they have. Yet somehow the city still stands. Philadelphia bleeds under occupation, but the resistance there is ferocious. Bombs rip through enemy patrols. Axis trucks vanish into alleys and return in flames. Collaborators are found hanging at dawn. The city may be occupied, but it is not conquered. Children go underground. Metro tunnels half flooded, half collapsed, echo with lullabies and sobs. Volunteers hang lanterns, set up hammocks, and distribute what little food remains. Innocence clings on, even as the world above collapses. Boston burns, but not in defeat. Axis convoys erupt in flame. Dockside warehouses explode in the night. Fuel depots vanish in fireballs that paint the sky red. Retaliation comes swift. Hostages executed at dawn. Families torn apart. And still, the city fights back. Churchill calls it the spark of the old world reborn. He endures like iron, displaced but unbroken. He tours our factories, urging workers to strike harder, faster. Eyewitnesses say he limped through the lines, cigar clenched tight, shaking soot-stained hands. Every bolt you fasten, every rivet you strike, drives a spear into tyranny, he tells them. Even as shells fall around us, the echo of that lion's growl steals our hearts. We are not defeated. We are bloodied, scarred, but alive. The Axis have taken our cities, shattered our fleets, but they have not taken our will. New York resists. Washington still stands. In the alleys, militias drill. In factories, sparks fly into the night. Every loss cuts deep, but none are fatal. We learn, we adapt, we strike back. And though we bleed together. This is not the end. This is the sound of a nation refusing to die. Last night the Luftwaffe came, a black swarm over the capital. Heinkel and Junker bombers filled the clouds. Anti-aircraft guns claw at the heavens. Searchlights pierce the clouds. Flak bloomed and bursts of silver and orange. 2 bombers fell in flames directly above the mall, their wreckage scattering across the reflecting pool.
For a fleeting hour, the city cheered through smoke and ash. For once we looked upward and saw Axe's wings break. The Reich presses us from the east, but from the west, another storm rises. The Pacific is no longer a barrier, it's a battlefield. Japanese fighters prowl skies once calm. From Seattle to Los Angeles, raids strike almost every night. Port cities burn, airmen fly outdated interceptors from improvised strips. They fight bravely, but the numbers are against them. Yet the militias fight back. Farmers bring down scout planes with rifles. Volunteers man anti-aircraft guns salvaged from old wrecks. They refuse to yield. The battle for the West is not yet one of invasion, but of endurance. If they break the coast, if they land troops, the war will come to our streets.
These are not random targets. They are symbols, the three pillars of Axis power: command, sea, and land. Military analysts say each strike could cripple the enemy's war machine for months. But the truth runs deeper. Each detonation will echo across the world, announcing that America still holds the torch and that no fortress is beyond reach. Whispers say Hitler is moving. Some claim he fled Berlin, hidden among convoys bound for Bavaria. Others insist he remains in his bunker, determined to die with his crumbling Reich. The truth is buried beneath chaos, but even the rumor of his flight reveals the truth. Panic has reached the highest ranks. Their faith is cracking. Their empire trembles. Here in Washington, the panic does not fill stomachs. The siege tightens daily. There is no livestock left. Families scrape weeds from frozen soil, boil bark for broth, chew on scraps of leather. You can smell starvation in every breath. And yet, they endure. Faith is all that remains. Roosevelt's last broadcast, his voice weak but burning, promised, "America will endure. If I fall, another will rise. If the torch falters, it will be lifted again, even from the ashes." He was killed days later, but his words became prophecy. Truman rose, the torch still burning, and now the fire will consume the world. In the New Mexico desert, they lit the sky on fire. When the bomb went off, sand turned to glass. The air screamed. For a single second, the desert became a sun. And in that second, mankind stepped beyond itself, into something godlike and monstrous. Witnesses fell to their knees. Some shouted, some wept, some prayed. Others could only stare, faces bathed in unnatural light. The blast wave rolled across the plains, flattening everything in its path. Miles away, cattle dropped, birds fell, feathers singed mid-flight. Oppenheimer whispered, "I am become death." Not scripture, a confession. That confession echoes here. It rides through the tunnels of Washington, through broken chambers and hollowed hearts. No one speaks of peace anymore, only the storm. Mothers murmur it like prayer. Soldiers etch it onto helmets. The starving chant it in streets, as if the word alone can summon salvation. But salvation has teeth. I walk through the ruins of Pennsylvania Avenue. The Capitol dome lies shattered, the marble bones of democracy laid bare to the sky. Yet beneath the ruins, people gather. They light candles in what remains of the rotunda, singing hymns to a country that refuses to die. The air smells of wax, gunpowder, and faith. Faith. That's all that's left. Here in New York, the factories never sleep. Men hammer through the night, sparks falling like stars that no longer shine above us. Trains snaked through the ruins, headlights dimmed, carrying crates marked only with the thunderbolt, the same symbol whispered in every coded transmission. I've spoken to men who load those crates. They don't know what's inside, but they speak of the weight, the unnatural heaviness of what they lift. One man said, "It feels like lifting the end of the world." He smiled when he said it, a tired, broken smile, as if he'd already made peace with the idea that none of us will live to see what comes after. Peace. That word feels ancient now. Washington breathes in rationed gasps, food riots breaking out daily, bodies lining the curbs by dawn. Hospitals are candlelit morgues. Doctors trade morphine for bread. Nurses whisper lullabies to the dying. Yet through it all, the radios keep humming. Every voice on the airwaves speaks the same prophecy. The storm is coming. And people believe, because belief is the only thing that doesn't cost anything anymore. The Axis dropped leaflets over New York, promises of mercy, surrender, peace under their flag. The people gathered them, tore them to pieces, and set them alight. Flames danced against the ruins. Children laughed as paper curled and blackened. A nation that still sings cannot be conquered. And still we endure. For a moment, the fire looked like sunlight. For a moment, we remembered what morning used to feel like. The enemy tries to break us with propaganda, images, broadcast, lies of peace. But they don't understand. You cannot threaten a people who have already lost everything. Washington is made of ghosts now, but even ghosts can fight. Rumors spread that Hitler himself has fled his bunker, hiding in the mountains, afraid of the sky. Perhaps it is true. Perhaps even monsters know when judgment is near. Judgment is coming. I can feel it in the wires, the hum of the generators, the trembling of the ground. The world is holding its breath, waiting for the first flash. Tonight a report came from the Mojave Front. Rommel's army is dying there. The desert eats his tanks. His men dig graves in sand that swallows them whole. Every mile of his advance costs a gallon of blood. But the Americans hold the line. And above them, the sky glows faintly, the reflection of something being built far beyond their sight. That glow reaches even here. The bombers are ready, engines primed, flight paths plotted. Crews have written letters to their families, letters that may never be read. They speak not of fear, but of release. One line stays with me. If this is how the world ends, let it be by our hands, not theirs. Maybe that is both courage and despair. Maybe now both are the same thing. Oppenheimer told reporters his men once feared the first detonation might ignite the atmosphere, that the sky itself would burn, turning air to flame. They calculated the odds. Low, he said, but not impossible. They did it anyway. And that is who we are. A species that will strike the match, even if it means burning the world to understand the flame. Perhaps that is what it means to endure, to stand at the edge of annihilation and still speak, still broadcast, still remember. Because if the storm takes us, if cities burn and the air turns to ash, someone must remain to tell the story of how we got here, even if no one is left to listen. Then let this be our record, not of triumph, not of terror, but of truth. The bombers will fly before dawn. The storm will rise. The world will change. If this transmission reaches you, whoever you are, wherever you hide, know this. We did not go quietly. We spoke. We resisted. We endured.
The world survived by a margin too narrow to measure, a breath between being and oblivion. The calculations were sound, they said. Probability of ignition? Negligible. But Oppenheimer told me once, eyes hollow from sleepless nights and desert winds, negligible isn't zero. He stood under that sky after the test, the air still trembling, the sand fused into glass reflecting the dawn like a shattered mirror, and he whispered words that would stain history forever. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. He walked into shadow, never to look back. Capitol Hill is no longer a monument to government. It's a fortress built from bones. Marble columns lie shattered, coating soldiers and refugees alike in white dust until all look like ghosts. The Great Dome, once the crown of democracy, is a crater open to the heavens, a wound that will never close. Yet soldiers patrolled its rubble. Sandbags rise where senators once stood. Machine guns nest in the ruins of committee chambers. Trenchers crisscross lawns once walked by presidents, now carved by rain and blood. Families huddle beneath steps, eyes wide, unblinking. Children draw flags on fallen marble with chalk and brick. Crooked stars, uneven stripes, but defiant. The Capitol no longer stands for power. It stands for survival. And in every whisper that passes through its crypts and corridors, one phrase repeats: Thunderstorm is coming. Closer than anyone dares speak. A whisper of wind becomes a roar, and then the storm breaks. The first detonation. Berlin has ceased to exist. A flash brighter than the sun split the heavens, swallowing the skyline in an instant. For a moment, night became day, and then nothing remained of either. Witnesses miles away described the ground rippling like water, buildings lifted, torn from their foundations, streets vaporized into dust and molten stone. The Reichstag gone, the ministries, the Gestapo headquarters, the command centers, all erased in a single heartbeat. A wall of fire rolled outward, consuming everything it touched. Those who saw it said it was not fire at all, but light made solid. A wave of pure, blinding judgment. Berlin has fallen. Not captured, not conquered. Erased. The news reached Washington moments later. Radio screamed, then went silent, then erupted into chaos. In the tunnels, starving children shrieked with joy. Men and women beat their fists against the walls, shouting names: Roosevelt, Truman, Churchill. Some simply cried, unable to comprehend that victory could sound like the end of the world. For the first time in 2 years, Washington laughed. The sound echoed through the ruins like music. But beneath the celebration lies fear. Every face knows what comes next. The Axis will answer. Retribution is inevitable. The bombers turn now to their next target, Hamburg, the heart of the U-boat fleet, the shipyards that once choked the Atlantic with steel coffins. Reconnaissance confirms the city is armed to the teeth. Flak towers, searchlights, batteries on every rooftop. The sky above it will be hell itself. But the order stands. The second storm approaches, and with it, the death of the Axis sea. Panic has already claimed the streets of the Reich. Sailors abandon submarines half-built in the slips, leaving steel holes gaping like carcasses. Workers flee the shipyards, tripping over their own tools, scattering wrenches and helmets that clang across concrete like gunfire. Commanders shout contradictory orders. Some demand to fight, others to flee. No one knows who leads whom anymore. Above them, our bombers hold formation, steady against the storm, silhouettes of vengeance cutting through the smoke-torn sky. The Atlantic blockade, once the iron noose around our throats, may snap before dawn. In Washington, the people believe. In the darkness of the bunkers, mothers whisper to their children, when Hamburg burns, the food ships will sail again. They imagine convoys crossing the Atlantic unchallenged, holds heavy with grain and medicine, steaming towards starving coasts. They tell the stories over and over until the words themselves taste like bread. Whether the truth will match the tale, no one knows. But here, belief has become its own sustenance. Hope is the only ration left. Yet the city still trembles under shell fire. Each explosion shakes dust from the rafters. Each concussion reminds us the Reich still crawls at our gates, even as their own cities are swallowed by flame. The Navy has held. Our submarines and destroyers prowl the North Sea with renewed fury. Convoys, desperate to flee Europe, scattered like frightened fish, hunted one by one. Tankers, transports, even battleships, sent to the bottom. The blockade that starved our coasts is disintegrating beneath the waves. Already, whispers spread that convoys from South America prepare to sail. Perhaps rumor, perhaps prophecy. But for the first time in years, it feels possible. The second bomb has fallen. Hamburg is consumed. The night has turned to day. The clouds reflect fire until the horizon glows crimson. U-boat pins collapse under the blast. Steel vaults that once gave birth to the instruments of terror are molten skeletons. Docks shattered, harbors choked with wreckage. Ships that once strangled the Atlantic now burn where they float, hulls glowing like coals upon the water. In Washington's cellars, starving people cheer. They tell each other the ships will soon come with wheat, milk, salvation. For one fleeting moment, the nightmare feels like it could end. The storm moves next to Dresden, the final heart of the Reich. Even as Berlin smolders and Hamburg collapses, Dresden hums with the machinery of war. Tanks, aircraft, munitions, an entire arsenal churns behind its factory walls. But not long. Chaos reigns. Troops abandon posts. Columns of civilians flood the roads, carts piled high with possessions. Faces turn toward the countryside. Yet above them, the bombers close in. Hope in Washington is fragile, thin as glass in shattered windows. Civilians whisper that Dresden will be the third and final blow. 3 strikes, they say. 3 cities, 3 deaths of the Reich. Soldiers, though, are not fooled. They know war rarely obeys the arithmetic of vengeance. They expect retaliation, something worse, something unthinkable. Still, they also allow themselves to dream that the end is near. For one night, even the starving can close their eyes and imagine peace. The third bomb has fallen. Dresden is leveled. The detonation consumes the city in a single incandescent breath. Factories, foundries, rail yards, erased. Those who forged the weapons of conquest vanish with them. Workers, soldiers, families, millions gone in an instant. With Berlin erased, Hamburg burning, Dresden reduced to ash, the Reich's spine has snapped. Command falters. Communication disintegrates. The Reich stumbles on shattered legs, bleeding into the ruins it created. Across New York, people fled the streets despite ration curfews. Flags rise from shattered windows. Voices, weak, hoarse, joyous, sing anthems no one has heard in years. Victory feels real enough to touch. But victory demands payment. and the debt has only begun to come due. In Washington, that truth rings through the tunnels. Families screamed when word of Dresden's annihilation arrived. Men embraced strangers. Women fell to their knees in prayer. For a heartbeat, it felt like deliverance. But the shelling above never stopped. The Reich still claws at our defenses. Every cheer is chased by another explosion. Every song drowned in artillery. The storm may have broken them across the ocean, but here we remain under siege. Yet, for a single night, hope itself feels like a revolution. Europe unravels. Axis command lies in ruins. Berlin's ministries buried. Hamburg's docks silent. Dresden's factories molten. Generals shout over dead lines. Units march without orders. The Reich devours itself in confusion. Resistance fighters rise like sparks in the dark. In France, guerrillas strike garrisons by night. In Britain, hidden cells detonate charges beneath occupation barracks. The wounded beast still thrashes, but its heart is failing. Washington faces the truth with trembling courage. Hymns echo through the tunnels to drown the shell fire. Mothers clutch children tighter, whispering, "What if they strike back harder?" The siege worsens. Food is gone. People barter for crumbs. Even soldiers appear as famine in uniform. Yet there is pride in hollow eyes. They know that somewhere across the sea, the enemy burns too. Some whisper, "If I must die, at least I die knowing we made them bleed." Victory at sea mirrors the sky. Submarines prowl the Atlantic with renewed fury. Convoys scatter, only to be hunted down one by one. The blockade that starved our coasts is gone. Hope, once fragile, grows in the marrow of the city. Whispers that convoys from South America prepare to sail circulate, perhaps rumor, perhaps prophecy, but for the first time in years, it feels possible. The price is written in blood. Hospitals burn. St. Elizabeth's took a direct hit. Its west wing collapsed. Patients crushed. Doctors buried beneath operating tables. Survivors work by candlelight in basements, stitching wounds in shadows.
Yet the Axis answers in blood. Entire villages are burned to the ground. Civilians lined against crumbling walls are shot before the morning mist has lifted. Britain's spirit rises, even as its flesh is torn apart. It is a land of ashes and defiance, one that refuses to kneel. And across the seas, our fleets push back into waters once ruled by raiders and pirates wearing the insignia of the Reich. New destroyers, sleek and silent, sweep the shipping lanes clean. U-boats are hunted down one by one, trapped in shallows, blown apart in roaring columns of water and flame. Ports long silenced hum again with life. Shipyards roar with hammer and steel, sparks cascading into the tropical night like man-made stars. The Caribbean, once a graveyard of convoys, now breathes free air. For the first time in years, the tides whisper a different name. Not theirs, but ours. At home, militia strike with the same quiet fury. In Boston, saboteurs planted charges along northern rails. Explosions shattered German supply trains, twisting engines into molten wreckage, scattering food and ammunition into the snow. Occupation troops retaliated at dawn, dragging civilians from homes, lining them in the streets. Executions carried out beneath banners of the Reich. And yet for every fighter killed, a dozen rise to take their place. They move through the ruins now like ghosts, unseen, unbroken. New York, Philadelphia, Boston, each city burns with the quiet fire of rebellion. Berlin is nothing but a grave. Reconnaissance confirms it. The Reich's capital is no longer a city, but a cratered wasteland. The Reichstag lies in dust. Government ministries vanish into blackened rubble. Streets are rivers of ash. Survivors stumble through the ruins, hollow-eyed, their skin gray from soot, searching for water that no longer runs. Berlin was the beating heart of the Reich. Now, it beats no more. And yet, even in that tomb, something stirs. The Axis still breathes. The war's lungs, damaged but not destroyed, still draw air. Washington endures their fire longer than any city left standing, but only just. The siege tightens each day. Axis batteries crawl closer, shell by shell, until even the bunkers tremble. Civilians live underground, surfacing only at night to scavenge for wreckage for anything edible. Starvation is no longer coming. It is already here. You can see it in hollow cheeks of mothers, in limp bodies of children slumped beside ration lines. Even soldiers grow thin, uniforms hanging loose, boots patched with scraps of leather and hope. And still, they endure. They whisper of Berlin's ashes, of Hamburg burning, of Dresden's hull. Each whisper becomes an ember, keeping the city alive when bread cannot. But intelligence warns of retaliation. Intercepts suggest the Axis is gathering what remains of their scientific core. There is talk of a new device, one meant to answer ours. Analysts fear that the Reich, though shattered, was building its own atomic heart, a weapon born from the same terrible discovery we unleashed. Berlin's destruction may have shattered laboratories, but it did not erase ambition. Rumors speak of secret facilities hidden in the Alps, buried beneath cities scrubbed from maps. And so a question echoes in every American war room. Did we strike first, or did we merely start a race? Washington braces for that possibility with quiet dread. When rumors of an Axis bomb spread, the tunnels fell silent. Mothers held children tighter. Soldiers shared long looks across dim corridors, eyes hollow but unbroken. No one says it aloud, but all know if such a weapon exists, Washington will be its target. And yet, no one flees. Hunger gnaws, shells fall, but the spirit holds. Families whisper in the dark. Berlin is gone. Hamburg drowned. Dresden leveled. If retaliation comes, let it. America has carved its mark into history, and that mark burns too deep to erase. Still, fear lingers. Across Europe's shattered coasts, the Atlantic, the Caribbean, the islands of survival, what do our Navy eyes see? What do they witness across waters still haunted by the ghost of empires? The answer is simple. The hunter has become the hunted. The tide has turned. And still, we endure. The Navy prowls the Atlantic like wolves. Axis convoys vanish without a trace, torn apart in the night, flames rising on the horizon where supply ships once sailed. Our new submarines cut through the depths with surgical precision, surfacing only to finish the kill. Intercepts from German admirals reveal the truth. Their Atlantic lifeline is gone. They cannot resupply. They cannot retreat. They are trapped, starving, drowning, strangled by the sea itself. But even the strangled beast thrashes before it dies. And analysts warn that desperation may drive them to unleash whatever final weapon remains. And here in Washington, we endure by sheer defiance. Families drag wood from collapsed houses tonight not for warmth, but to build barricades. Children carry sandbags with trembling arms. Old men dig trenches until their hands split and bleed. Civilians have become soldiers. The city itself has become a fortress. Survival carries its own wounds. Bones press through skin. People faint in ration lines. Disease creeps through the tunnels where the air stands still. And yet no one surrenders. Every shell that falls, every scream in the night only hardens their resolve. They will not break, not while there is breath left to curse the enemy. And now,
The news that can wait beyond the static.
Across the ocean, Churchill, frail, cracked by age and war, spoke again today. His voice still strikes like steel. He said, "Britain will rise again in the storm's shadow," warning that the Reich is not finished, that before a monster dies, it lashes hardest. His words are not comfort, but warning. And yet warnings have power. In New York, people sing his name in the shelters. Militias paint his words on crumbling walls. Across the ocean, he still commands hearts. Here in Washington, his voice finds us even through static, echoing in tunnels that have known only darkness for months. When he said, "Hold fast," hands clapped with trembling resolve. Children whispered his words like scripture, and for a moment, even the wounded smiled. But when the radios went silent, the world returned, the rumble of artillery, the cold, the hunger. Words cannot stop shells, but they give us something no ration can: resolve. And that resolve burns hotter than fire. Sometimes, survival is decided not by bullets, but by preparation, by what you wear, what you keep, what you protect. Clothing is armor, not against bullets, but against slow killers: cold, damp, hunger. I have seen men freeze to death in trenches, not from wounds, but because boots gave way or colts soaked through. Wool is life. Even when drenched, it insulates. A heavy wool coat patched a dozen times will save longer than a brand new cotton uniform. Layer yourself, thin close to the skin, thick on top. Oilcloth outer layers if you can find them. Never trust cotton in the winter. Wet cotton is a coffin. Boots are sacred. Socks must be changed whenever possible. Trench foot is slower than a bullet, but just as final. Spare clothes sealed in oilcloth may become currency when bread runs out. A coat can buy shelter. A scarf can save a throat from frost. The war kills with fire and steel, but exposure kills quietly. When you think you're safe, guard against both. And yet, the fear we carry is not idle. At Los Alamos, those who birthed the storm itself walk with hollow eyes and trembling hands. They fear the Reich is closer than anyone dares to admit. Their calculations are rechecked, equations rewritten, machines roaring day and night under candlelight. One physicist whispered, "We have opened the gates of hell, and now the enemy will open them too." Still, they work, not for glory, not for science, but because the alternative is silence. Washington's army holds the line with sheer discipline and desperation that no training can teach. Soldiers patrol what remains of streets, eyes hollow, boots crunching on glass and ash, rifles clutched to trembling hands, every shadow a threat. Deserters are shot on sight, a cruel law that keeps the line from breaking. Hunger and exhaustion do not stop them. Soldiers and civilians alike dig trenches side by side through cold mud, carving fortifications from ruins. Morale phrase. Soldiers whisper in the dark, not of the enemy, but of families starving below. They fight now for revenge, for homes already lost, for children they may never see again. Each bullet fired becomes a memory-made weapon. Berlin is a grave, a wound that will never heal. Reconnaissance confirms the city no longer functions as a capital. Its streets are rivers of ash, impassable. Fires burn in hollow shells of buildings once called monuments. Survivors wander like ghosts, skin blistered, eyes blinded by the flash, coughing soot with every breath. Axis radio never admits defeat publicly, but even they cannot disguise the truth. Command has fled. Hitler remains missing. Some say he hides in the Bavarian Alps, guarded by shadows. Others whisper he perished in the blast, a tyrant consumed by his own fire. no one knows. His absence is not peace, it is uncertainty. His shadow lingers, heavy as smoke. Berlin no longer belongs to them. It is ours now, but only as a ruin. In the tunnels, that ruin brings bitter satisfaction. When news broke, when Berlin was confirmed to be ash, shelters erupted. Men shouted Roosevelt's name. Women sang for Truman and Churchill, voices echoing through concrete halls. For a moment, even the starving forgot their hunger. For a moment, they believed the nightmare was ending. Then above us, artillery struck again. Cheers died mid-breath. Dust fell like snow. The truth settled back into our bones. The Reich may be bleeding, but it still claws at Washington's gates. Victory abroad means little when the sky above you still burns. Commanders expect fire. Intercept suggests the Axis prepares something catastrophic, a weapon not yet equal to ours, but devastating. Analysts whisper that Washington is the target, not New York, not Boston. Here, the heart of the Republic. If they strike the capital, they believe America's will collapses with it. Radar grids are active, interceptor squadrons armed, anti-aircraft batteries on standby. But behind closed doors, commanders know the truth. If the Reich has truly forged a bomb, even a crude one, no wall of steel will stop it. The siege has entered its final phase. Axis artillery now sits within 10 miles of the city. Guns pound day and night, measured and relentless. Entire blocks crumble with each barrage. Fires rage unchecked. The skyline glows red, a wound that never closes. The Capitol dome, once our symbol, lies shattered, a heap of broken stone and iron. Commanders admit privately the city cannot withstand much more. And yet they refuse to abandon it. Still, they fight. Still, they dig. Still, Washington stands. Broadcasting here is a feat of defiance. Each bombardment shakes walls. Dust rains from ceilings. Bulbs flicker until darkness swallows the room. Sometimes the connection dies completely, nothing but static until generators spark again. The air smells of burnt wires and sweat. Helmets stay at my side, ready for the whistle of incoming shells. Technicians sleep in shifts, soldering torn cables, scavenging parts from wreckage. We broadcast not from safety, but from defiance. As long as this voice carries through the static, Washington is alive. This frequency, this fragile thread, is all that stands between silence and surrender. Intercepts confirm chilling rumors. Axis Radio speaks of a Wunderwaffe, a miracle weapon. Our analysts believe it is a device of mass destruction, perhaps nuclear, perhaps worse. Its location unknown, deployment imminent. All signs point here, to Washington. The Capitol is the symbol. If they erase it, they believe they can erase the spirit of America itself. Commanders' assured defenses are ready, but deep down, they know what we all know. If it's a bomb like ours, no defense will matter. We brace, enduring the siege as the city bleeds. Washington is alive because we refuse to fall silent. We hold the line, patrol the ruins, feed hope where rations cannot. The storm we unleashed abroad may have destroyed the Axis, but here, in the heart of our republic, the war continues. Every shell, every scream, every shadow, every breath is a testament. We will not surrender. We endure. The civilians do not panic anymore. Not here, not in Washington. There is no energy left for panic. When the warnings come, they nod quietly, gather what little they own, a photograph, a coat, a piece of bread, and descend deeper into the tunnels. Some pray, some sit in silence.
No one screams, no one riots. It is not calm, it is acceptance. They know what is coming, and they refuse to meet it running. In those moments, when the sirens wail and the earth shudders beneath the guns, they hold their children close and whisper, "If this is the end, let them know we stood." They have endured 2 years of hunger, shelling, and death. 2 years of smoke-filled skies and ration lines that never end. 2 years of watching the city shrink, street by street, under artillery and famine. If the Reich's final weapon comes, they will face it the way they faced everything. Together. Not with screams, not with panic, but in silence. Waiting. A mother told me tonight, her voice steady despite the shaking ground. If it happens,
I speak because someone must. The families huddled in the dark, the soldiers bleeding in the mud, the widows clutching photographs of the dead. They need to hear a voice that refuses to break. If I falter, they falter. So I speak, even as my hands shake, even as my throat burns. I remind them that Berlin fell, that Hamburg burned, that America will not kneel. And if this is my last broadcast, let it carry strength, not fear. The payload opens, bomb bay doors spread. Across America, radios fall silent. Millions are listening. No one speaks. The world holds its breath. A blinding flash, a rising column of smoke, black and towering. A mushroom cloud where the Capitol once stood. Washington is obliterated. The Reich has struck back. For the first time, America feels the fire it unleashed. The voice is gone. The city is gone. And in their place, only silence. But even in this silence, life clings. New York still stands. Militias still fight. Truman still leads, and America still breathes. Barely. The future is uncertain. The world has seen too much fire to ever be whole again. But as long as one signal can carry through the static, we endure. For the living, for the lost, for those who die defending a city that refused to kneel. This is Mercer, still standing, still transmitting. Stay strong, stay human, and cast out.